living spiritually, which is our purpose in life, then we're not really living at all. We're abusing the world. We're using it for the opposite of what it was created for.
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom V'racha. In this week's Parshas Vayigash, we have the emotional climax where Yosef actually reveals to his brothers it's him. And he requests them to bring his father, their father Yaakov, to him, to Mitzrayim. And he said he'll take care of all of them. And so they come back to Yaakov, their father, and they say to him, Od Yosef Chai, our brother Yosef, your son Yosef, he is alive after all. V'hu melech shel Mitzrayim, he's ruling over Egypt. The immediate reaction was that his heart went numb. Vayafag liboy. And it's only after he saw the wagons that Yosef sent him that it says, Vatichu ruach Yaakov avihem, that his spirit, only then was it revived. And the question begs itself, what do you mean? Yaakov just heard that Yosef was alive. Not only that, he heard that he was the ruler of Mitzrayim. Surely he realized on the spot, wow, the dreams came true, everything's fine. But no, he was not fine. He was only fine once he saw the agalot, the wagons that Yosef sent him. What is it about the agalot, the wagons, that only after he saw them, his spirit was revived? So we know Chazal teach us that the wagons actually hinted to the last thing they learned Torah together, which is the Parsha Vayigash, which is pretty much the process of what needs to be done once they find a dead body in between two cities. And the word agalot, wagons, connects to the word eglah, the heifer. So what happened over here? What is it about this that changed everything? The Chasam Sofer explains that when the brothers returned to Yaakov and told him, yes, Yosef is alive, not only is alive, he's living in his Mitzrayim, not only is he living in Mitzrayim, but already for 20 years he was there, and right now he is the leader, literally. Chasam Sofer says Yaakov wasn't really interested in that. He didn't really care about if he's a leader or even that he's still alive, because at the end of the day, he only cared about one thing: is he alive spiritually? Living spiritually is what life is all about. As the Ramchal tells us in the Hakdama to Mesilas Yesharim, Hashem didn't create the world for physical existence alone. The whole idea is to live life not in a way of just sleeping and eating and just going about your everyday. We were placed in the world, this physical world, to get Seidah Laderech, which means to nurture our neshama, to have food for the world to come, spiritual food. If we are not living spiritually, which is our purpose in life, then we're not really living at all. We're abusing the world. We're using it for the opposite of what it was created for. That perhaps is a deep understanding of what Chazal teaches, Reshaim b'chaim kruim meisim. Even when they're alive, they're called dead because they're not really living. To live, it means you're living in a spiritual sense, fueling your neshama with all kinds of spirituality. The wagons that Yosef sent Yaakov was a way of saying to him, I still remember what we learned last. That's because I know the heart of what life is all about and where I'm still holding. That is what I always realized. Life is all about spirituality, and that is what the Torah represents. And that was the last thing they learned. But perhaps we can take it a step deeper. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated it, that the last thing they learned was this whole parsha of Eglah Arufa. It itself, perhaps, on a certain level, symbolizes this concept as well. The Gemara in Soita, Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph, explains that part of the process is that the elders of the city that were closest to the dead body, the elders had to declare, Yadeinu lo shafcha et hadam hazeh, our hands did not spill this blood. And what they meant, says the Gemara, is he didn't come to us and when we sent him away without any food and without escort. So the pshat, based on the Gemara, refers to physical sustenance, giving him food, making sure he's okay. But perhaps misvara, logically, it is pretty obvious that Ratzon Hashem is that we also make sure that on an emotional and spiritual level, he's also okay. And hence, this parsha also teaches us how important it is to make sure that every Yid will be able to stand on his own 2 feet in this world, which means fulfilling his purpose in this world, which means fulfilling his purpose, spirituality, from a spiritual perspective. Of course, that means you have to have anything you need physical to live, but it's a lot more than that. That's just a chitimtzi. That's just a means. The end is to live life in a spiritual sense. And that is exactly what Yaakov wanted to make sure is happening. And when he saw the hint to that, the wagons, he realized, Baruch Hashem, now I'm revived again because I realized that my son Yosef is living life, living in a spiritual sense. The Egla Rufa represents taking responsibility for a Yid before he leaves town, ensuring that he has what he needs, both physically and spiritually, to survive the journey. And we know spiritual survival is what truly matters. Perhaps we can also link this to what we said a couple of weeks ago, based on Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's Chiddush, that there's two different types of Torahs that were learnt by Yaakov. He learned at his father's at Yitzchak, but he also ensured to learn in the Torah of Shem Va'ever in the yeshiva there. And why did he do so? Because that Torah was geared to know how to be able to be stable spiritually, despite the fact you're in an impure environment. Yaakov knew he was going to go to such an environment, but he also knew his son Yosef was going to be in such an environment. And as we saw, he actually gave that Torah over to his son Yosef, who now showed him that he actually used that Torah, and that is what saved him from all the nisyonis he had during his time in the most impure place of the world at that time. The wagons confirmed this. The Torah we learned together, Yosef was telling Yaakov, gave me spiritual provisions for the journey. The Torah I learned that you gave over, the Torah you learned at Shem Va'ever, kept me spiritual alive in Mitzrayim. And now we understand to a very deep extent why Dafka, the wagons, which symbolized this teaching, caused the impact of Vatichi Ruach Yaakov, the spirit of Yaakov was revived. Yeh Ratzon that we realize that life is all about ensuring that we live life up like it was planned to be by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is in a spiritual sense. I would like to end off with a story adapted from what I heard by Rabbi Daniel Koren, and he says the following story. A big Rav once brought a group of his students to meet the Chafetz Chaim. When they arrived, they were told that the Chafetz Chaim wasn't feeling well and might not be able to receive visitors. After some discussions, they decided the Rav, and only the Rav, can go in alone. The Rav entered and spent some time with the Chafetz Chaim. Then, to the students' surprise, the Chafetz Chaim asked the Rav that they were brought in as well. The student hesitated. All the students hesitated because they knew the Chafetz Chaim was unwell. They didn't want to be machiach him. They didn't want to burden him. But he insisted. When they finally entered, the Chafetz Chaim looked at these young people's eyes and said to them, you live in a generation, the late 1800s in Europe, facing crazy nisyonot, secularism, assimilation. And then he said something that surprised them all. And he said the following words. And by the way, I heard different versions of the story, but this I heard from everyone. I had to see you now, he said. I don't know if I'll be with you in Olam Haba. The students were shocked because they realized the Chafetz Chaim was hinting that they may be on a higher level in Olam Haba as opposed to the Heilige Chafetz Chaim. How could the Chafetz Chaim, the author of the Mishnah Berurah, the Gadol Ador of the generation, say such a thing? And he explained, you faced tests I never encountered in my protected environment. The challenges of maintaining spiritual integrity in your world, the temptations you overcome daily, the Torah you learn despite the surrounding darkness, these may elevate you to realms beyond even my own. Who knows if I will reach the levels you will achieve? I must see you now while I still can. I think that says everything. We have to realize that every little action we do in this world that triggers spiritual sustenance for ourselves is huge, as small as it may be, because we live in such a crazy Western culture full of impurity that every little act has a tremendous effect. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of The Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on The Prism of Torah.